All have given something, but some have given all. And that means that there's some folks that died in battle so that we could have the freedom that we do have right now. Because as good as it can get and as bad as it can get, at this point, we're still free. And we're free to think, and we're free to choose. And so I would pray you would choose wisely. Up on the screen, there's a young couple by the name of Davy and Natalie Lloyd. They're full-time missionaries, young couple in their 20s, full-time missionary couple to Haiti. They were killed 2 nights ago. Gangs killed them. I remember a pastor years ago used to tell me, you cannot lose what you give up. And so while that's tragic, and it is tragic, you might ask the question, where was God in all that? In fact, if I were trying to enlist you in service to the king, and that was a poster boy for enlistment, I mean, the poster boy, the poster, I used to do a joke, that's why I won't say it that way. The poster board for enlistment were that couple. You'd probably say, yeah, count me out. I don't think I want to go to Haiti. There have been a lot of Christian soldiers that have given their lives. The Bible says this about that in John 15:13, that greater love hath no man than this, than a man to lay down his life for his friends. And that's what Jesus did. He went all the way to the cross and took our sin upon himself. And of those 2 other men that were hanging, one on the right and one on the left, one said, if you're God, save yourself and save us. Come down off the cross. And the other one said, we deserve to be here, but this man doesn't deserve to be here. And it was Jesus that said to that one, today, you'll be with me in paradise. I'm going to give you something this morning that, quite honestly, it's difficult to explain because it borders on, and I'm going to try to do my best to explain the difference between reckless abandonment and a modified behavior. You see, it's natural and think about the parents of those kids. Think about the family of those 2 missionaries who gave the ultimate sacrifice. And so there's kind of a parallel that I'm drawing here. What does it mean to give your life for another? What did it mean when Jesus gave his life for all of us? He who knew no sin, that we might be made the righteousness of God. All those songs that we sang were songs about redemption, that we who did not deserve redemption have that afforded to us. So I'm going to look at something this morning, and I'll tell you right now that we live in a world that's going crazy. When you think about the terrorist organizations and you think about the things that are going on right now, and our policy for, the last 40 years has been not to negotiate with terrorists, and yet the world's political arena is telling Israel, we want you to negotiate with terrorists because they want their families back. Wouldn't you? You'd want your family back. You'd want them to do anything and everything possible to get those family members back. So we live in a world that's gone crazy. Practically, when we take that stance that we won't negotiate with terrorists, we, in fact, over recent years, we have a new unit. It's called Homeland Security. And in today's world, we see an enemy around every corner. We talk about the southern border. We talk about the northern border. We talk about our security here at home. And none of us want to ever see a 9/11 again. But think about people that's their lifestyle. They get up every day wondering if this is the day. Is this the day that a terrorist comes into my village? Is this a day You know, I don't remember if it's 184 or 74 countries worldwide, but almost a third of the countries worldwide are actively pursuing the annihilation of Jews and Christians. And they're not just saying we don't like them, they're saying we're going to kill them. And Hamas is right up there at the top of that list. So today we live in a world of fear. Nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. Yet we tell Israel to negotiate with terrorists on their southern border. It's kind of hypocritical, don't you think? We all should thank the men and the women who have given us the right to live in a country like we live in. She's not perfect, and she's got a long way to go to be that. In fact, she won't ever be perfect. But she's still one of the greatest places on earth to live. And I don't want to lose sight of that. And sometimes even when I get up here and I see things that I don't particularly like, I don't agree with, it's easy to forget that men and women have died for my right to say what I say. And so this Memorial Day weekend, especially, thank someone that serves. And I don't mean just those that serve in the armed forces, but there are those that serve us every day. Our sheriff's department and the police department. Last night there was a guy that stepped on a copperhead, and that's not a fun thing. So the ambulance came out, and the fire department came out, and they came out and got that guy to the hospital as quickly as they could. And you know, there are a lot of things that happen to people, and some things we're aware of, but most things we're not. And there are probably some things that have happened in your life that you wouldn't call them good. In fact, you'd probably call them bad. You might even call them ugly. And so when we look at what I'm about to look at, we're looking at something that some have called this the Christian's invincibility. I call it a soldier's prayer. I call it a soldier's prayer. How do you distinguish between reckless abandonment and modified behavior? You see, reckless abandonment says if there's a tornado, I'm going to go out and play in it. It says if there's traffic on 635, I'm going to go run around in the traffic and see if I can keep from getting hit. Reckless abandonment gives no thought to what might happen. Modified behavior says I choose to put that uniform on. I choose to serve Christ. I choose. And there's a big difference between the two, and I'm going to hopefully show you that difference. Romans chapter 8, verse 31 says this: if God be for us, who can be against us? You know, Paul said in Philippians chapter 1, verse 21, for to me to live is Christ, for me to die is gain. Davy and Natalie just gained. They barely got started, and they were ushered into the presence of God. What I'm going to share with you is kind of a brain teaser, a little bit. You ever get those on your phone? You know, it says if you can look at this puzzle and in 13 seconds you can pick out the missing letter, you have an IQ of 130. Well, what I do is I look away. I look, you know. Well, that's not what this is. This is pretty self-explanatory. And so when you look at that verse and you read that, you might think, well, then that means that I have no right to really fear because everything's going to work out. Yes and no. It doesn't mean that we're invincible in that we can't be hurt. It doesn't mean that we're invincible in that something bad might not happen to us. Bad things happen to God's people all the time. But what it does is it sets up a precedent. It sets up a choice that we can make. I can choose to serve the Lord. I can choose to name Christ. But there's a big difference in me choosing to do that in a free country and me choosing to say and do that with a gun stuck to my head. So we're going to look at that a little bit. And we're going to go into a place that I don't know that I've ever gone. And that is, we're going to look at God's secret place. Hey, listen, God's got a secret place, okay? You ever had a secret place? As a kid, I had a secret place. I had to hide stuff from my little brother. So I'm the only one that knew about it. I'm the only one that knew where it was. A lot of times we have these secret places where we keep things that we don't want just anybody to necessarily see or get a hold of. Hopefully they're good things, but that's what I'm going to talk to you about. What is the secret place of God? How can I stand here after showing you that and telling you that couple laid their life down 2 nights ago and were killed by gangs in Haiti? And how can I talk about Christian invincibility with that backdrop? Because you can't lose for winning. You see, that's what Paul came to understand. If I live, then it's Christ. But if I die, it's gain. In our Bible, when you read that, Romans 8:31, there are 2 verbs. In the original Greek, there are no verbs. It says something like this: God for us, no one against us. There's no verb. What that means is, you remember when I tried to teach you about timeless eternity, that eternity past and eternity present and eternity in the future, that there's no time? That's a timeless truth, that no matter what happens to you, you've already won if you're a believer. If you're His, and if God's for you, then who or what could be against you? It's a done deal. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and I'll keep saying it. Heaven is just as real today as it will be the first day that you occupy it. Jesus is just as real today as it will be in the first day that you see Him face to face. You just don't fully realize that. I'll tell you what I would do if I were a teenager. I'd want to get on the right side of this thing. I'd want to know. I'd want to know that if I were to die, that I'd go to be with God. I'd want to know that. You know, we've been looking at Daniel, and we've been looking at that as a practical side for both teenagers, young parents, grandparents. He's really a good model for us to look at because of all the things that we're learning. What Paul is trying to teach us here is something that I think sometimes, not always, but sometimes when we're faced with that kind of truth, that a couple just died on a mission field, we really don't understand what Christian invincibility is. It's a fancy way of saying, does that mean that we're actually safe? Yeah, but not safe in the way that you might think. And so we're going to look at that, and we're going to try to explain it. You remember back in Numbers chapter 14, I believe it is, you remember when the spies went out? There were 12 of them that went out, and they saw that this was a land that God was going to give them. And it was a land that flowed with milk and honey. And then they came back to give a report. And there were 10 of the spies that went out and they said, well, yeah, there's grapes and there's honey. But, man, we can't take that place. There are enemies there. There are giants in the land, real giants. And we just can't do it. But Joshua and Caleb said this: if we go and pursue this, the Lord will give us that land. They said, as truly as I live and say, the Lord hath spoken in mine ears, so will I do to you. That's a great verse, brother. I didn't have that written down. I will do what I say unto you. So Joshua and Caleb, they came back and they said, look, God said, we got it. Let's go take it. But the other 10 said, no. And we've learned that that's grasshopper mentality. They said there are giants in the land and we are grasshoppers in their sight. Well, where'd they get that information? They made that up. And you remember what the cost of that was, right? How long, O Lord, will you put up with this generation? And we found that the answer was, well, for 40 years you're going to wander around. I'm going to take care of you, but you're going to wander around because you didn't trust God. And then the only 2 that remained were what? Joshua and Caleb, Moses. We recognize certain things about that there is an element of fear. Look, I don't know about you, but a couple of weeks ago I watched my granddaughter walk across a platform, and I thought, this isn't the same world that those guys are facing that I faced. The worst thing I had to worry about was maybe getting in a fight. I hate fights. I don't like being in them. Maybe somebody brings a knife. Maybe somebody gets drunk on a Friday night. These guys have a lot more to worry about. So how can I tell them? How can I stand here and say, if you give your life to Christ, not only do you have an eternity that's secure, but there's a certain promise that God makes to you in light of what I just showed you. Like I said, if I'm trying to sign you up, that's not really a great endorsement, is it? Oh, I give my life to Christ, and I give my life and my future to Christ, and I go to Haiti and I get killed. Well, you're looking at it all wrong. You cannot lose what you've given away. And there's something that you get in return. And what is that exactly? Well, Psalm 27 puts it this way. And I'll just kind of look at some of these Psalms, and you can read after my brother puts these up on the monitor. But Psalm 27 and Psalm 46, they say certain things that I want to call your attention. Psalm 27 says, "The Lord's my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear?" The Lord is the strength of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked, even mine enemies and my foes, came upon me to eat up my flesh, it's a metaphor. They stumble and they fell. They didn't stumble and fall then. Though a host should encamp against me, my heart shall not fear. Though war should rise against me, in this will I be confident. One thing I have desired of the Lord that I will seek after, that I might dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to behold the beauty of the Lord and to inquire in his temple. Verse 5. Here's the promise. Whether you're in Haiti or Denison, Texas. For in the time of trouble, he shall hide me in his pavilion. In the secret of his tabernacle shall he hide me. He shall set me upon a rock. Psalm 46 puts it this way, and we had a little bit of that this week, didn't we? God is our refuge and a strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore will I not fear, though the earth be removed and the mountains be carried into the midst of the sea, though the waters thereof roar and be troubled, though the mountains shake with swelling thereof, Selah. There's a river and streams whereof shall make glad the city of God, the holy place of the tabernacles of the Most High God. God is in the midst of her. In other words, through natural disaster, earthquakes and floods. Last night there was a lot of shaking and rattling and rolling going on. And there were some tornadoes out there. And you might ask a question, and you have every right to ask it. Why does one house get hit and the other one spared? Well, I'm going to give you the answer in a minute. The heathen is raged, and they were moved. Verse 10 says, "Be still and know that I am God." Did any of you get nervous last night? A little bit? You say, I was a little concerned. You know what I'm going to speak to my karate guy here in a minute. You know what my first karate instructor taught me? That the best offense starts with this foot and it ends with this one. That's what he taught me. Run away from trouble if you can. Go away from it. So, the psalmist is simply saying, the Lord of hosts is with us, the God of Jacob is our refuge. He was with them in Numbers. He's with them in the Psalms. He's with them over in Deuteronomy. He's with them whenever they fell, whenever they failed. He was with them. I call this the soldier's psalm. Psalm 91. Psalm 91. Let's read a few verses. He that dwelleth in the secret place, there it is again. He that dwells in the secret place. Some translations have shelter there. Do you have that maybe in your Bible? Shelter. It says, secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. It's a picture. I'll give it to you in a minute. I will say of the Lord, He's my refuge, He's my fortress, my God, in Him will I trust. You know, I'll not fear what men can do to me, because it is in God that I trust. Surely He shall deliver thee from the snare of the fowler. That just means somebody that's trying to get me. Did I ever tell you about the time when I got punched in the nose? Did I tell you that story? Yeah, I'm invincible. You know, I'm this 4th degree black belt. You know, I'm invincible. I see things coming from way off. And I go to get gas for my wife one day, and I pull into a gas tank right across the street from the church, and this girl walks up to my door. I haven't even got it in park yet, right? And my window's cracked about like that. And she just simply asked for directions. Can you tell me how to get to Austin? And I said, well, yeah, if you go up Navarro here. And about that time, a fist came through the window and smacked me right in the nose. Knocked my sunglasses off and over there on the floor, and I'm laying cockeyed like this. And it's amazing what you think when you get hit in the nose. You know what I thought? Lord, I just got hit in the nose. Real deep, huh? And so there's this guy, this maniac, that's trying to get in the car. And so I just let my foot slip off the brake, and I kind of throw him off. I pull out and go down the street a little bit. I sit up, and I shake my head, and I go, I just got hit in the nose. I'm like, where was my angel? By the way, we're going to read about that in a minute. Where was my guardian angel when I needed him? Did he juke when he should have jagged? What's the problem here? And so I come out, and I see this guy, and he's beating on that girl. And see, I know they hadn't heard this story. That's why I'm telling it again. He's beating on that girl. He's behind the door, you know, and he's just beating her up. So now I'm mad. It's not good to see me mad. So now I'm going to go out, and I'm not going to go talk. So I already decide what's going to happen. So I pull out, I pull back in right at the pumps. I open my car door, I step out, and we're not going to have a conversation. And about that time, he steps out from behind the car door, and he's naked. He don't have a stitch of, well, he had this little USMC half-tank shirt on, but this boy's naked. You know, my mama didn't raise no fool. There's something wrong with this boy. So I just kind of, you know, casually just get right back in that car, and I think, you know, my chivalry only goes so far, and I just back out and go down the barrel. Well, he throws her in the car, and he starts chasing me. It's just chase is on, right? I'm weaving in and out of traffic. He's weaving in and out of traffic, and I'm thinking, man, I'm dead. This guy's after me. I'm dead. Why didn't I see that coming? So I get up to the stop sign. There's the mall on one side. There's Denny's on the other, and it's a main intersection. And so I'm sitting there, and he's 2 or 3 cars back. He can't get me yet. And I see a deputy sheriff on the opposite side of the street. So when that thing turns green, I shoot across there and do a U-turn, and I come up behind him. I get out, and I go to his window. I figure I'm going to get shot. I'm knocking on this deputy sheriff's door, and he rolls the window down. You know what he says to me? Are you the guy that just got punched in the nose? That's what he says to me. Are you the guy that just got punched in the nose? Well, I was. I said, yeah, and that's the guy that did it to me right there. He goes, sir, you need to go home. Where is home? I said, it's that church right over there. You need to go home. We'll send the EMS over and check you out, but we got him. And all of a sudden, there was this convergence of police and sheriffs and everybody, and they got him in the Red Lobster parking lot. The guy was on meth. And so there I am sitting in the parsonage. I got EMS, fire department, bubblegum lights going everywhere. I'm sitting there. They're taking my, my pulse, my blood pressure and all this stuff. It was slightly elevated. About that time, my music guy comes in. He'd seen all the ruckus. He comes running into that living room. He goes, Brother Mark, where's the fire? And I go, well, just a minute and I'll tell you. And so eventually they all leave, and he said, what's the deal? Where's the fire? I said, well, I'm going to tell you, but I don't want you to laugh. I just got hit in the nose by a naked guy. Do you think he laughed? He laughed. He laughed at me. So my question is real simple. Where was God in all that? Do I have this invisible shield, this protection that makes me invincible? I do, and I don't. You see, reckless abandonment simply says, I'm going to go play in the traffic. Modified behavior tells me I probably shouldn't do that. It tells me that I probably should have been looking out for myself, and I wasn't. In one weak moment, I looked away. And bad things happen when you look away. So what does it mean to dwell in the secret place of God? What does it mean when God says, you know, you and me, we're a team and we're invincible? Does that mean I never have to face death? No. Does it mean that bad things can't happen to me? No. It just means that until God allows it, it ain't happening. And when it does happen, as bad as that is for that young couple, that's as good as it is for that young couple. They went to their reward, and it's just as sure and it's just as settled before they were murdered, and that's tragic, and we will mourn that, and there will be families that will mourn that loss. The father-in-law said he couldn't describe the pain that he's feeling. I don't think you could. And so the psalmist said it this way, and here it is. You'll cover me, and I will not be afraid of the terror by night or the arrow that flies by the day. I'm not going to worry about the terrorist. I'm not going to worry about the tornado. I'm not going to be overly concerned. I'm not going to be stupid. When I hear the sirens go off, I'm going to seek shelter. When I recognize that there's danger, did you know that fear is an emotion that God gave to you? There is a time and place for you to be sensibly afraid. That's not wrong. But there's also a time and place for you to be assured that you, if you dwell in the secret place of God, you're protected. Now, where is that? I want to know. I wanted to know where that is because I've read it no less than 4 or 5 times in my Bible, and I wanted to know, where is this secret place? It's made up of 3 letters. Samek, Tal, and Resh. It makes up a word called Satar. It's 3 parts to that one word. It means, first of all, Samek is believed to be a vessel that has a roof or a covering on it, and that it protects from sun and wind and the elements. And then the word Tal means restoration, that which restores us when we are down. The word Resh means hiding place. Putting it all together, do you know what it means? The secret place of God is in his inner coat pocket, closest to his heart. That's the secret place of God that we can dwell. We can be there. And we can be there 24/7. The Spirit of God reminds me that he's praying for me when I don't know how to pray. Romans chapter 8, we're back there again. Verse 26, it's the Spirit that makes intercession for me with groanings that can't even be uttered. When I don't know how to pray, it's Jesus, take the wheel. When I'm not sure about what's going to happen, I just got hit in the nose. When I'm not comfortable with my situation, I still don't need to fear because he's got this. I put in my Bible on Romans 8:26 those words. He's got this. You remember Romans 8:31 where I said there were no verbs in the original? It means that in the past tense, in the present tense, and in the future tense, God's got this. You say, well, what about that couple? You're not going to like this answer. I don't know. I don't know why then, why now. I don't know. There's some things I just can't explain. But I do know this. You ought to write it down. God is too good to do wrong, and he's too wise to make a mistake. You have to believe that. And if you will abide in the shelter of his wing, it's in the innermost part next to his heart. That's the secret place of God. In the shadow of the Almighty, we have chickens. It's an amazing thing to watch a mother hen over chickens. She protects them with her wings. We had a place in South Texas, my brothers that like to fish, called Coleto Creek, the power plant lake. And there was one place called the Eagle's Nest. And it was a cove, and I took the family there, and we fished there quite a bit. Well, there was a live eagle's nest there. And often we would see this mother eagle with her eaglets, and what she would, I guess that's what you call them, and what she would do when they got old enough, she would kick them out of the nest one by one. In other words, it's time to fly. You know, even nature knows it's time to kick them out of the nest. It's time to fly. And she'll kick one of them out at a time, and she'll watch this eaglet sputter, flap its wings. It looks like it's this impending doom. And just at the last second, she'll swoop in underneath that eaglet and catch it on her wings. And she'll take it back up, and she does it all over again. And she keeps doing that until that eaglet knows how to fly. When you're in the secret place of God, if God be for you, who's against you? And the word if doesn't mean it's conditional. It means since God is for you, because God is for you. In the past tense, in the present tense, and in the future tense, God's got this covered. I don't understand it all. I don't think anybody can say that they understand it all. I have a whole series of messages on why bad things happen to God's people. But all I'm going to do is try to show you this, and then we're going to be done. In Romans chapter 8, we found that this is true. There is a satar, there is a secret place in Psalm 91. There is a place where he dwells in Isaiah chapter 40, and it's a good place to go to just remind us in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 27. Why sayest thou, O Jacob, and speakest, O Israel, my way is hid from the Lord, my judgment is passed over from my God. In other words, I don't get it. I really don't understand this. I really don't know why that couple on that particular night went home to meet the Lord. But this much I do know. And Isaiah puts it this way. Hast thou not known, hast thou not heard that the everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, faints not? Nothing slips up on God. Nobody takes him by surprise. Now, I wasn't there, and I don't know how that couple responded. I don't know the situation, the circumstances around it, but it did not slip up on God. And I'm sure that their family members right now are asking the question, why? Why now? And I think that maybe there are times when we ask that question, why? Isaiah is reminding them that God's not asleep. God's not fainted. Nobody pulls one over on God. So Isaiah puts it this way. Had you not heard that neither is he weary, and there is no searching for his understanding? He giveth power to the faint, to them that have no might, he increaseth strength. Even youth, even young people, even youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But they that wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They'll mount up with wings as eagles, and they'll run and not be weary, and they'll walk and they'll not faint. So if God is for you, if you're in and by the grace of God, you're his. Nothing's going to happen to you that he doesn't want to have happen. So why do bad things happen? Because that's what you're really wanting to know. Well, I'm going to tell you why. You might not like it, but I think you might. I don't know. There's a positive way to look at it and a negative way. You've probably written this down if you've been with me very long. I call it the Clint Eastwood theology of Romans chapter 8, verse 28. You know, the good, the bad, and the ugly? Everything that's good in your life after Christ is given to you by way of Christ. Everything that's bad, God doesn't waste. Everything that's ugly, God uses. He uses the good, He uses the bad, He uses the ugly to do something that is good and creative and wonderful. And what is that? Well, verse 28 tells you what it is. And that's really what I need for you to recognize about if God be for us, who can be against us. We know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to His purpose. Remember what that means. It doesn't mean that a bad thing might not happen. It means that the good, the bad, and the ugly, that it is all used for one purpose, to create in you an image to the glorifying of God. Verse 29, for whom He did foreknow, He also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of His Son, that He might be the firstborn among many. That means just this, that God doesn't waste anything in your life as a believer. In fact, I believe as a non-believer, there are things that happen in your life so that they can bring you to a point that you can choose Christ. How many of you have ever had a bad thing happen to you? Come on, not an exercise in futility. We all have. How many of you to this day don't really understand why it happened? You know what I think is most painful? How many of you have ever been betrayed? Maybe it was a friend. Maybe somebody talked about you. Maybe you thought you had a friend, but it was an ally to somebody else, and you were betrayed. Anybody? Yeah. I remember in South Texas, we were going through a hard time. You know what? There's a lady by the name of Corrie ten Boom. During World War II, she hid Jews. She said that there was two things that work in her always: love and hate, and that there was a fine line between the two. She said the absence of love produces pain, and it produces hate, and that there was no way that she could forgive them for what they were doing. And the only way that she could forgive them is if she went to a hiding place, a secret place. Now, not just the compartment where she actually kept Jews, but a place next to God's heart. I believe it's Psalms 119, verse 114, that she found that there was this hiding place that no, she couldn't forgive, but He could. No, she couldn't love, but He could. And so what she found herself doing was going back and resorting to that secret hiding place, that place that's closest to God's heart, so that she was confident that no matter what happened to her, the love of Christ would remain. And so what I'm saying to you this morning, it is a Memorial Day weekend. I'm saying that the soldier's psalm is Psalm 91, and we are all soldiers of the cross. They may not have had a uniform on, but those were two young people that met with what we would consider an untimely death. And I want you to look at that couple. I am confident if I had them standing right here and I asked them, would you do it again? I'm confident they would say yes. We would go to Haiti. The secret places of God are places that are closest to His heart. And so, what shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who can be against us? My wife wants me to finish this, so I will. Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It's God that justifies. Who is it he that condemneth? It's Christ that died, yea, rather is risen again, who is even at the right hand of God, who also maketh intercession for us. That's a reference back to verse 26. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Did their death separate them from the love of Christ? No. For me to live is Christ. For me to die is gain. The Apostle Paul would lay his life down one day on the chopping block in Rome. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress or persecution or famine? You can make a list. You can make your own list. Or nakedness or peril or sword, as it is written, for thy sake we're killed all the day long. We're accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things are we more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I'm persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, or principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God which is in Christ Jesus. You want to know where your angels come in? They come in Psalm 91. There shall no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh to thy dwelling, for he shall give his angels charge over thee. I don't know. Maybe I was supposed to get hit in the nose. I can tell you one thing, I was careful going to that gas station. Lord, I pray that this morning, that there might be an open heart, open to the reality that you sent your son to die for them. Open to the reality that, Lord, you took their sin on the cross. I pray that if there are those that have never met you, that this morning I'm introducing my best friend to them. Someone that's been with me through thick and thin, good and bad, and even the ugly. That everything has been according to a purpose, to conform me to an image. Lord, I pray that you give us the strength and the wisdom to ask ourselves a question. And that question is very simple. Lord, are we in a relationship with you? Do we know you? Lord, I pray that you might take that which the Word of God has taught us this morning, that there is a place, there's a hiding place, a place that is secret from the world, a secret place where you hide us, you keep us, you restore us, you justify us, you give us the strength to carry on. I pray for that one that might, either by video or even here this morning, that's not saved. They don't know Jesus. That this morning might be the day that they call out in faith. Lord, help us to be able to help them, I pray. In Jesus' name, amen. Let's all stand to our feet.